Welcome to Classic Value Investors. My name is Mariusz Skonieczny, and today we're doing another update on the oil tanker market. I'm here with Robert Bugbee. Robert, thank you very much for joining me again.
Thank you very much, Marius.
So last night I saw a press release from Scorpio, and as you know, some insiders bought shares, and you personally bought some call options, and it just kind of made me laugh a little bit because after I went on Twitter, I saw again same thing that happened before. Some people were happy to see that, and that there's others that are complaining about that, and I just find it really funny. So, can you just a little bit address about like why are some people so against it? I believe there were some conversations you had before, doing it, not doing it. Can you just address this right from the top?
Sure. I'm really not really sure. I know that some people are against it, but for everyone that's against it, people are happy. I mean, I think in general, most shareholders are, thrilled, when insiders buy, full stop. And, they're disappointed if insiders sell. That's just, par for the course. But, on balance, an insider is there are many reasons why insiders sell. There's really only one reason why an insider ever buys, and that's because they think the stock is undervalued. And, an insider, when they're buying privately, has the right to and should do what they think is in their best interest, providing it's fully within the law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Clearly, you're not doing anything to affect the stock in the short time frame, because an insider by definition really it really has to have a longer view rather than day trading. So it's these type of things just normally create stuff either way.
Yeah. Um, I, uh, I I find something else interesting because obviously the oil tanker space in general has been very much out of favor over the last few months, but I feel that Scorpio Tankers is even more out of favor than all the other names. So we have a group of people that is bearish on the tanker in general. Then we have a group of people that is bullish on the space. But from those people that are bullish, a lot of them are even turning bearish on Scorpio Tankers. And I'm thinking to myself, uh, is there anyone left that doesn't hate Scorpio Tankers? And then I see your insider buys, and I'm thinking, okay, that's very interestingly timed. So what is can you tell us like what is your optimism based on?
A number of things. So in general, in 35 years of investing in tanker stocks, in general, one wants to look for opportunities. And I'm not talking here about Scorpio, I'm just in general on tankers. One wants to look for asymmetric opportunities. And one of those opportunities normally occurs between the early part of July and the middle of August. And normally that is the off-season anyway for tankers. Rates are low. People are on holiday. Analysts are on holiday. Everyone questions whether, how far rates will fall over that period and whether rates will ever get back. That's been the standard for, 30, 35 years. But, 8, 9 out of 10 of those times, you would have been very well rewarded by buying tanker stocks in general through that period. Whilst it's quiet, whilst there is negativity in sentiment in the market. That's the first thing. Then there are times also in the history of the tanker market when analysts, the market itself, have been dead against the trade. such as, a few years ago, there was a time when, major analysts, and one analyst wrote, the tanker market is going into an abyss never to return again. 3 months later, just 3 months later, all the stocks have doubled. I mean, it is so right now we have analysts downgraded, as you point out. We have, people giving up on the trade. We have people apathetic on the trade. We have many, signs of negativity in the markets. Analysts downgraded the positions. People talking about dead money or, revisit tankers in another year, et cetera, et cetera. And so, this is another one of those times where it's not just that you've got the July-August effect. You've actually got what you really want here, which is all the negativity taken out. So right now, I would argue that Scorpio tankers and some of the other tanker stocks are even discounting hope right now, and that's a rare thing, but that creates an asymmetric opportunity to invest. And I fully understand the thought of why Scorpio tankers is down, or as you put it, hated or under attack or whatever. First of all, it's one of the it came into April, March coronavirus in February as one of the highest leveraged stocks. So people sit there and think, well, if it's carrying more leverage, then it's going to get hit if rates go down. But here, I think people haven't really understood that, the fleet is a very good new fleet, so it can carry more leverage than most stocks. It also has, as you've seen from our recent press releases related to second and third quarter guidance, the company is earning a lot of cash. It's even started the third quarter earning a lot of cash according to that guidance. That's fantastic. So when you come to the third quarter announcements, I mean, what else is there to hate Scorpio or beat Scorpio up for? I mean, we all know that the third quarter is weaker than the second quarter. Fantastic. That's old news. Good. Well done. Move on. But if we look forward, we could get some catalysts here. We already know that the supply side of the fleet is improving all the time. There are a considerable number of vessels getting older. We already know that the actual industry itself, the insiders to the industry, the main players, are bullish. We've seen top companies like Euronav already enter the market to buy back their own stock. We've seen two players openly say that they think that the product tankers are undervalued. We've seen Hafnia try to acquire Ardmore, which is a clear sign that they think the market is good, and we've seen Ardmore, rebuff Hafnia without a counter, which is that company saying, sorry, we think that the market is undervalued right now. In addition, in the last 10 days, at this point where it is the darkest, we have seen some of the major traders take in tonnage on charter. We have also seen in the last 20 days considerable consolidation, particularly in the MR market. Some of the weaker owners, like a Diamond S, giving their ships to some of the stronger owners like Norden to operate. We ourselves in our pools will, add a considerable amount of tonnage from smaller operators, good quality tonnage over the next 20, 30 days. So underneath this, the market continues on the supply side to consolidate. We also have something that's quite rare right now. Not that we would see it from analyst reports, because as I said, they've gone to sleep or gone negative, but the MR market has gone up virtually every day for the last 10 days and is now sitting at a level that is only $1,000 a day below the entire average for year to date for 2019. That's an extraordinary phenomenon to see that the product an MR market actually firm through the third quarter. We're seeing inventories drawn down at a rapid speed. We even have a chance now of OPEC increasing output either for August or September. That would be a tremendous catalyst to the tanker market. Again, if we look over years, the correlation of OPEC movements to tanker stock movements is pretty close to 1. In other words, when OPEC says it's going to cut, tanker stocks go down. When OPEC say it's going to increase, tanker stocks go up. So here, I'm not necessarily, interested, although it'd be nice as to what happens over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. But certainly the trend is starting to turn. And when you have stocks like Sting discounting everything in their price, including hope, and it's quite clear that these tanker stocks are going to have the liquidity to get through the third quarter and into the improving environment for next year, I think they create fantastic opportunities.
Well, let me ask you about the balance sheet and dilution, because I think this is one of the arguments that people have against Scorpio, is that they saw some dilution on salt, and now they're saying, well, the balance sheet is still over leveraged, therefore it's just a matter of time before we're going to have to issue some equity. Can you comment on that?
Sure. Look, I can't speak for the board, but clearly, just my purchase of equities and the insider purchase of equities in Sting indicates that they do not expect that to happen. It would be really irrational for an insider to especially buy call options if they believe that the company was just about to issue equity or in need of issuing equity. That would be an irrational move. You can't say never, because who knows what can happen in the world. But I mean that I can understand where that thought comes from. I can quite clearly see that. But I think that to the logical person, I think that's not something that's on the cards.
Okay. You mentioned that you're seeing rapid destocking. Oil demand is coming back. I talked about the oil demand coming back in some of my videos because everywhere I go in my city, there are so many people driving. I mean, it's almost like either back to the pre-COVID levels or even above that. And I had some conversations with other people, and they shared similar stories. Certain cities, it's not like that, like Hawaii or Arizona and maybe Florida. It's not back to the same level, but overall, I think we're seeing much more driving because people stay away from public transportation and flights for right now. And then you have news talking about COVID cases spiking and second shutdown. How are you thinking or about the second shutdown and how it could affect the tanker market? And would we maybe see floating storage again?
Yeah, we could see floating storage. I think that before we get to shutdown, the world is not just the United States. There is particularly in the product market, I mean, we're benefiting right now in terms of increased demand into Asia and into Europe. So we're, as I said before, I'm much more in favor of the world getting through COVID-19. So, of course, I can see that if you had a shutdown, as like last time, then yeah, you probably have the same effect of stocking and rates driven up, et cetera, et cetera. But I think I'd much prefer that we didn't have, you can have localized shutdowns, you can have shutdowns in part of the United States, and, that's okay. And you'll just grind this out into an improving world. I think that, we've also got to look at it in terms of a more optimistic, environment that where Sting is trading, I mean, imagine if you actually had some kind of ability to, cure or lower the death rate of this virus, or even create a vaccine, somewhere in the next year, or then that's going to be fantastic, because, it's quite clear that Sting will still be around in 18 months. So I think that what I'm choosing here to do is say the stock has already discounted, as I said, everything including hope right now.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about Scorpio Bulkers? Because I know most people want to hear about the tankers,
Mm-hmm.
but we did talk about the Scorpio Bulkers, and last time you mentioned about the rates going up. So how's the situation looking on the bulk side?
For the vessels that Scorpio Bulkers have, which is the Ultramaxes and the Kamsarmaxes, the rates have actually gone up every day since we last spoke. And I think the bulk market itself is in a very healthy shape. I think that the Cape-size market screamed up very high and is just consolidating, drifting off a little bit, which may be confusing a few people. But they should understand that even for the Cape market, the rates that are being quoted are substantially in cash positive, with all the stocks trading at steep discounts to NAVs. So that again is positive. And for Scorpio Bulkers specifically, since we last spoke, its net to assets value continues to improve. Private owners with the improving rates, so we've not just seen improving spot rates, we've seen improving time charter rates. I mean, very significant. I mean, when we did the issue 4 or 5 weeks ago, Kamsarmax rates were around $5,000 a day and just marginally below operating cash break even. And now those same rates are 13, 14, moving to $15,000 a day, which are, all in cash positive. And prices themselves for vessels, rather than falling, which is what everybody, thought at that time, prices themselves are going upwards as the private market moves in to deal with that. We're also seeing more activity in the sale and purchase market on dry cargo from the private companies, because more ports are opening up that allow for crew changes and for inspections of vessels. And, the dry cargo market is looking very, very constructive.
Can you talk a little bit about the order book on both sides, actually, on the tankers and dry bulk?
Sure. Look, both tankers and dry bulk have, pretty well all-time record low order books. Very, very good. Again, the smaller sizes in dry bulk that we have, that order book even looks better than the Cape-size market. So the order books look very good. The product market itself, so for Sting, the order book doesn't look good. It looks incredible because not only is the order book itself lower in terms of percentage for products, the product market has that sort of unique phenomenon that once ships get to 15 years old, they effectively get removed from the premium trade. And so many of our competitors with older tonnage are going to be under that pressure to move out of the premium trades. And so it's another thing that's really exciting for the next 18 months is that the product tanker effective fleet growth could well be negative in certain periods. Another thing that's as important in supply and demand right now in the short term is all the dry dockings that all of us, it doesn't matter whether you had a crude oil tanker, a product tanker, or a dry bulk ship, all of us had during the height of the coronavirus. So on the tanker side, many of us, including Scorpio, intentionally delayed dry dockings where we could. Where we could, we delayed them for a few months because the rates were so amazingly high during March, April, May, June, July. And now people will start to play catch up in the tanker side of it. Say in the dry bulk, it wasn't so much that the rates were high that stopped people dry docking. It was that you just couldn't get into the yards because of the coronavirus and the inability to change your crews. But across shipping, you have the requirement to step up the dry docks. So again, on the margin, that's going to improve present supply and demand.
Okay. When you were talking about 15 years of age for the vessels and then them being removed from the premium market, could you touch a little bit about the actual physical scrapping? Do you see any happening? Do you think any of that will happen?
It's hard for me to be bullish on the rate environment and then expect scrapping. I think you'll see scrapping in dry cargo because there are many vessels that are above the 20-year age position. I think you'll see you're not really seeing much scrapping in the product market. You don't need to because of the 15-year position, simply because the rate structure itself has been it's been so constructive. I mean, I know that the rates look disappointing today compared to where they were in the second quarter, but the rates are, creating positive cash flow still. So there's no economic pressure for anybody to scrap.
Okay. Well, wonderful, Robert. Thank you for
And I think that's one of the messages here. If I was to look at the overall thing, to go back to Sting, we have a stock, as you say, that's been been hated, been kicked, is discounted beyond hope, and but without the realization to stand back and understand that the company itself built a tremendous amount of cash during this year to date, plus is actually in a market right now that is very constructive and destocking very quickly, but is still creating positive operating cash. So therefore, it's not burning any of the cash, or the worry on the balance sheet is much less than what one could have had 5 or 6, 7 weeks ago.
I think that's a very good summary for what we just talked
Thank you.
about. Yeah. Thank you for coming on to do this interview in such a short notice. Any final concluding thoughts that you might have?
No. I mean, I think we discussed anything. As I said before, we're happy to talk regularly on these subjects.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Industry we love.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.